Tony,
Yeah.
firstly, let's start right at the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in West Thurrock, the 30th of July on a Friday, 1937. I don't remember it. My first memory of being born was my first day at school, at West Thurrock Primary School. That was in 1941.
And is that West Thurrock Primary School that is still there on the site?
No, it's been moved 3 times since then.
Has it? Oh, right.
Yes,
okay, can you tell me?
It was at the front to begin with. I can remember the Mr. Stewart and a few other people, and then it was moved to the back, and then that's gone, and now it's moved across the road behind Flynn Street, where I was born at number 4.
So somewhere like Grays, for example. So we're going to naturally, we're going to talk about little bits of Grays, whether it's a State Cinema or different places that aren't there anymore. What's your earliest memory of, say, for example, the area of Grays Town Centre and places like that?
Well, my earliest and fondest memories of going back to Grays a lot on the old 370. I think it was a penny on the bus. And my father used to work for Tunnel Portland Cement, at that time Alpha. And on a Sunday I used to take up his dinner on a bike, and he used to give me a shilling, that's 5p now. And I used to go to the cinema, either Gray's, the State or the Ritz, for either Abbott Costello, Laura Nardi, Old Mother Riley, Arthur Askew, all them. And it was 7p halfpenny to get in. And at the State we went in at the side, not at the main entrance. And
which one did you prefer, the State or the Ritz?
With the organ.
So it's the organ. What is it about the organ?
Well, no, you say I prefer. I went to the State more than I did anywhere else, but I preferred the Regal. The Regal at the top of the hill opposite the council offices. That was a marvellous. You could queue in there and not get wet. And you did have to queue in those days, right the way round. And because they had a big foyer there, and they had all these stills of all the films that were coming. I've got a photograph of the Regal there that dates way back. It looks like a garage. I like the Regal because inside it was all very Venetian. They had sort of verandas and grapes hanging down and things. I always remember that. And I think during the war they had a thing called the Army in Skirts. They had a stage show on there, and I can remember seeing them. And then not only there, we used to go to the Exmouth in Grays, which was on the beach, and that was an indoor swimming pool. And we used to walk back from there, and they had the lovely Bastiana's ice cream parlour.
Let's go to the Exmouth for a second. So
yes.
People are trying to visualise, because here we are in 2018, people are trying to visualise where this swimming pool bars were. Can you describe where they were roughly?
Well, when you come onto the beach was, well, it's all covered up. There's a great big wall there. I haven't been there for years. You used to run down, and the parlour was right in the middle, and there was a great big walk, and then right at the end was the Exmouth indoor swimming pool, and opposite that was the old Exmouth boat. That's why they called it the Exmouth. Well, some of the boys from the East End used to go, the detention boys. So that was we were taught at school there to swim in there, but I learnt to swim at Barking, open air swimming pool.
Were you evacuated?
No, I wasn't. My father was at that time fireman at the Thames Ball Mills, so he had lots of nights. And there was me. Shirley was 2 years older than me, my sister, so we're talking 41. I was 4, Shirley was 6, and Des hadn't been born yet, 42. And my mother didn't want to be left on her own at night, so she said, "You're not being evacuated." And we had a shelter in the garden under the ground. I think that's where I got my claustrophobia from, going down those shelters. They were tiny, and I was tiny then. And if we didn't make the shelter, we slipped under the stairs, in the cupboard under the stairs, because it was reputed to be the safest place in the house, under the stairs. And my mother used to sit in there with a torch reading to us. That was 1941.
Right.
And we had the big stone shelters at the school, where when we, had an air raid as such. And we were bombed.
Can you remember it?
Oh yes, quite vividly. Remember the doodlebugs. Remember running down in my little red dressing gown down to the shelters. And I remember the bomb dropping at the end of the street, and it shook a lot of the houses. Did a lot of damage to our house, number 4, which I eventually sold when my mother died. But I was born there, number 4, because in those days we were all born at home. We weren't born anywhere else.
Were you aware of the war ending?
Yes, remember the war ending? We had a ginormous party in the street. We had a trestle tables right down the middle of the street. There were no cars in those days, and we were too poor to have cars. Rich people had cars like the doctors, and it was all down the street, and we had jelly and Le Mans and all. And that street, at the bottom of that street was Flint Street's Working Men's Club, and Alpha and Tunnel Cement Works had a combined children's outing to Malden every year. And that street was full with about 10 or 12 charabangs, as I call them, coaches, all full of children.
What senior school did you go to?
Senior school, I went to Butcherbit, Aveley Secondary Modern, 11 till I was 15. And so I remember all the teachers there. When Russell Napier,
But you still retain an interest in that. We talk about that. The Facebook page about Greys, old and new, and
yes,
and you take a great interest in the history.
Yeah, because I'm interested in people. Like when they wanted me to do a 1-to-1, I said no, I want to meet people, because I dealt with people all my life in Lloyd's, because I was working in the room, so I met people.
You say Lloyd's, so
Lloyd's of London,
right? Shipping.
Yeah. And I finished up being deputy underwriter. So I dealt with brokers and different people all the day. I wasn't stuck in an office. I was in the room. I'm a member of the 3 Rooms Club. I worked in all 3 rooms, the 3 buildings that Lloyd's had. Like the new one looks like a oil refinery.
Just explain to me, what's an underwriter?
An underwriter is the man that underwrites different things like shipping, oil tankers, cargo, anything. They insure everything. We have the non-marine, where you insure things other than shipping. We had the air that insured the aircraft and all that sort of thing. And I was a deputy cargo underwriter. And my main dealing was with cargo, and then I developed into drilling rigs, insuring drilling rigs. And that it was an interesting life. I met a lot of people. But to go back to Greys, what else do I remember? I was a great Greys Athletic football fan.
Oh, now you're talking. Yeah.
And I remember Greys. And I've actually done country dancing on the Greys Wreck, which is gone now, isn't it?
Has, yeah.
Yep. On the Greys Wreck when I was a little boy from the school. And in those days, I can remember the players. There was a bloke called Vinny. And the centre forward was a man called Brian Fairs, and we also had the amateur England goalkeeper, a man called Shaw. And we were in the Athenian League in those days. There was the Athenian and the Isthmian, and I followed them everywhere. I went to Wilston, Walton, everywhere. Kingstonian, or when Barnet were in that league, Underhill, where the ground's like that.
And which end, when you went to Greys games at Bridge Road, where did you usually stand?
Right opposite the stand on the other side, right opposite the main stand, so I could see the players come out in the middle, always in the halfway line, and it was all standing in those days.
Was it sad to see the ground go?
Well, I lost interest when I went to work in London. It was only between my school leaving age and about till I left when I was 26. I left.
Has Grays changed a lot for you?
Oh, ruined it. The worst thing they ever did was make it a pedestrian. You could go up the high street, over the railway line, round the corner, down to the beach, to the yacht club, and the old bakery, old Co-op bakery, was on the way to the beach. We always used to stop and watch the men take the bread out the oven. They'd in big tins and they'd bang them, and they'd all come out. And then there was a steel mill there on the Grays Beach. We used to watch them roll in the steel because it was so hot. They had the shutters open and everything like that. And the paddling pool, that's all gone now. I think it's all sand now, I think. And Bastianus, the great ice cream man, he came around the houses, didn't he, in his old trike. And he tried for a penny, a little round ones in the corner. And if you wanted a wafer, they had to get a block and they used to have to cut it up.
You've got a very vivid memory, haven't you?
Oh, yes.
Have you always been that way?
I've always been that way. I think when I went to work, I was very shy. You wouldn't believe it, would you? But because I met people so often, and I've got no temper, I haven't got a temper, I'm very patient. You have to be. If someone annoys you, just say, with respect, I disagree, But you have to sort of negotiate. I try and see both sides. And when I go to my day centre, I'm always interested in people. Anybody new comes in. And I'm always interested in people that lived and worked here. Not because so many people in the area came down from London, didn't they? In the 40s and 50s. So they weren't bred and born here. So many, I think I'm the only one in their day centre. They all came from Hoxton, Dagenham, Barking, all the.
And these days you get out and about with help from Contact the Elderly.
That's right? About it. In the last 3 to 4 years, I was quite active. About 10 years ago, I used to go a lot of cruising. When I retired, I did a lot of cruising, but then I became unable to walk, so I had to cancel all that. But I was still driving and I was still swimming, but then I had heart problems. I've got 2 occlusions that I'm living on tablets, so they can't operate on me, so I'm just staying alive. I've had a good run. I'm 81, so
But you still, when you get out, it's great to mix, and you said you're still interested in people. That's
I love talking to people. I love it, and I'm a good listener as well. Although I talk a lot, I'm still a good listener. I'm always interested in people. Trouble is, they don't stay long enough. Friends with a couple of people at the day centre, and they were all Londoners, but they were nice people. 1 minute they're there, next minute they're gone. So I like to take an interest in them while they're still alive.
If we go back, we won't detain you for much longer regarding cinemas. The State Cinema closed, and that was a great sadness for Grays, wasn't it?
Oh.
They're going to reopen it as a pub, but is it good to see it reopening?
Well, the architecture was very good, I remember that. But I don't drink and I don't smoke, so that side of it pubs never interest me. Although I used to go up to Fox and Goose with a jug to get my father a gallon of ale, whatever they call it, little tiny off cells in right in the centre. At the cinema, I do remember the Ritz was very regal with that lovely stairway that went up like that. And of course the State was a bit later, 1920s, so it was Art Nouveau sort of thing. And they did Roger Rabbit and the Follies and a few other things there because of the architecture. But I still like the Regal.
And you told me before we started filming, you're interested in genealogy.
Genealogy.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, because I've lost all my family, and I'm an only son. My brother had a girl and a boy, and he's handicapped. So I'm not married, so I am the only member of the Chubb family alive, male, apart from my nephew. He's handicapped. So I thought, I must find out if there are any more Chubbs. And I wrote to everybody called Chubb in Great Britain, 1,500 of them. Cost me I did. I got quite a good 40-50% reply. Some nasty ones and some that didn't want to know. But I gave it up in the end. So I concentrate on my family. I've got my own website and tribal pages. I've got 1,200 people on my website and about 300 or 400 photographs. I collect weddings. I collect weddings of everybody. I've got weddings going back to 1910.
Are these Chubb weddings?
Chubb weddings or family weddings, yeah, I collected all them. And now, when it's anyone's birthday, like I just had an aunt, she's 88. So I turfed out a photograph of when she was a bridesmaid at my uncle's wedding, and she was 8 years old. So I blew it up, cut and cropped it. I blew it up, sent her a birthday card with a photograph of her at the age of 8 as a bridesmaid in 1938. And I haven't heard from her, but she's the oldest member of her family. My aunt lived to be 97. He lived in Hillcrest Avenue, number 13.
And you said you're in your 80s, but you're certainly all due respect, a silver surfer. I mean, you're there with your computer in front of you. Always been up to date with technology.
Yeah, well, we were the first people to have computers in Lloyd's.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we IBM, but it was all information. It was no pictures or anything. It was just feeding information in and getting information out. It was all figures, because you had these great big books of paper, computer paper that sort of all stuck together. We had reels and reels of it. It was, because we had so many accounts that we had to keep an eye on the ones that were good. But to go back to Gray's, I'm just trying to recollect Woolworths and the Gray's Market. I mean, where did that go? That was fantastic. The old market, Ambrose Market, that's what it was called. All the little stalls in there, you wanted anything, you'd find it in there. And R.G. Cole, who was some of the biggest furniture people, they had a little place right at the very end of the market. That's how he started. Now he's, advertising in the paper, selling everything. So I went to Gray's, went to Exmouth, went to the cinema. I didn't go to the clubs or pubs very much, except the Working Men's Club at the bottom of the thing. I remember that during the war.
But these, in conclusion, these are all happy memories. It's nice to look back on it.
Oh yeah, it's nice to look back at it. There were some sad ones, but they're all happy. But sad to see Gray's deteriorate. It's still, you can't live on old times. Things change, and so many of them have got so many higher standards. In those days, if we weren't satisfied with anything, we got on with it. We had dreams. We wanted to do this, we wanted to do that, and it was easy to cast away those dreams if they didn't happen. But the young people today, they've got so many things in their hands. Their dreams could be enormous, couldn't they? I mean, the technology and everything, and the colleges and the universities. I mean, all you did was go to school and then go to work, didn't you? To pay your bills.
So in conclusion, you're saying to the young people, you've got great opportunities, embrace them and fulfill them.
Yeah, they should.
Dream big.
They should, and stop fighting and arguing.